Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to our online small group workshop. We're glad that you are here, and Jay Kranda with Saddleback is joining us on Zoom. So this will be a great demonstration for how effective you can lead remotely, even in a small group. So we're glad that you're here, Jay.
Yeah, I hope it goes smoothly and we don't discourage people from doing this.
Well, and you know what? That's part of it. If you're going to do online small group, you have to be able to wing it. And so these events happen to us at least on a weekly basis. So, but we're glad that you are here. I think Jay and I discussed kind of how the best way that we could do this is perhaps I'm with Lake Pointe Church. My name is Jessica Taylor, and I kind of work with our small groups there. And we kind of have a different approach maybe than Saddleback. So I thought that I would present how we do things at Lake Pointe and then let Jay present how they do small groups at Saddleback. And then we'll have a time of Q&A. Does that sound good? Does that sound good, Jay?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, and so I'll share my PowerPoint and then I'll turn it over to you and you can share yours. All right, let's do that. It's a good demonstration too as we go. So I'm going to share my screen. And you should still be able to see, oh, you're not going to be able to see Jay up in the corner. But
That's okay. Nobody wants to stare at me for that long. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Well, he's there and he'll be back. And he's there the whole time. Well, I would like to first introduce myself. I have been with Lake Pointe. I've been a member there since probably, I think, the year 2000, but have only been on staff working with their small groups in the past year. I've worked with small groups in Bible studies for the last 18 years and was in the process of really checking out and going into retirement. Made my last resignation letter, sent that in to Dallas Theological Seminary. I was in their PhD program and really felt the Lord was tugging me to break all my previous commitments. So I did that and had about a 2-hour period of retirement. And then Jeremy Henderson called me and said, would you pray about this, iCampus? And I had been at Lake Pointe and had not even heard of iCampus, had never attended it. So it has been a ride in this past year. And so I'm grateful to be here, but I'm rather a newbie and can just tell you what we've done in this past year. It is one of the things that we are most excited about at iCampus at Lake Pointe. Lake Pointe is a church. We looked at the statistics. 2016, we had average of 14,000 people in our weekend services. And of that 14,000, there were about 8,000 that participated in physical life groups. In a mega church, our life groups are a form of a small church within the larger church. Well, our vision for iCampus is not to just provide a bridge to our physical campus, and it's not just for the convenience of our members if they're sick and can't come on the weekend. It is really to provide our online church members with all of the same benefits that they could get at a physical campus. And so there's where we wanted to develop our small groups. What did we offer at our physical campus that had not yet become available to our online attenders, our online members? And so when I came on a year ago, you can see that we had 14,000 people coming, 8,000 attending physical life groups. A year ago, we only had one online life group, and it wasn't actually a real viable group yet. So we began to try to figure out how we could build a vibrant life group. And so I'm just going to show you what we have done, and we've had some really great success in this past year. And I'm going to just simply go through the what, the why, and the how. What are our small groups at Lake Pointe, and why are we doing them, and then how are we doing them? Because the Lord just kind of dropped me off in the deep end and said, learn how to do this. And if you're new, how many of you are already leading small groups, online small groups? Okay, great. So you want to know how to do this, and hopefully I can share some tips that I've learned this past year. We do have 3 different types of groups that are available online. We have our life groups, which I already explained is a small church within the larger church. And so we have life groups now that share that type of community where they're receiving pastoral care through our online life groups. We presently have 2 life groups available online that are available after our main worship services. We have people that attend our worship services online come into our life group. Second, we have a Bible study. And our Bible study, we found some really unique ways to offer Bible study where people are coming, attending in the room, and then we have our online viewers where we have people now attending from multiple continents on a regular basis that are interacting with our physical group. And then we have corporate prayer. We do have at this point, about 40 leaders on our iCampus team, and we gather together once a week for prayer. So this is the extent that we're using them right now: life group, Bible study, and our corporate prayer for our iCampus leadership team. Why do we do this? And this kind of bleeds over into why we have iChurch. We are excited about the opportunity to overcome all geographical limitations. We are seeing vibrant community now in these small groups. One of the groups that I am leading on the weekends, I sat there and was just amazed after a few weeks when I saw we had one from Pakistan, one from Nairobi, Kenya, and we had one from the UK. And we are doing life together. Right now we are praying for the country of Kenya as they prepare for their elections. We feel very involved in that. This is the way that we're experiencing church together in our life group. So there's no geographical limitations. We're finding that when people come online, when you can create a vibrant community we don't treat our online viewers any differently than those in the local area, then we're able to really just dismiss those differences and really get in and do church together. This, of course, accommodates busy schedules, especially with our Bible studies. We have mothers who are able to stay home and attend Bible study with their children. All of our small groups are co-ed. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's working for us at Lake Pointe. This brings Bible study and prayer into the home rather than breaking up families so that they have to attend a physical life group. I've done that for years. I'm finding that it's very satisfying for a husband and wife to be able to attend Bible study together from the comfort of their own home with their children even present. This is also able to draw the homebound into fellowship. I wish you could meet Brittany, who is wheelchair bound, who we do life with her. She just went through the hurricane in Florida, and we were in Texas praying for her, staying in touch with her constantly. And we have another 82-year-old who is going through her second round of cancer. And she in tears said that up until our online groups became available, she felt cut off from Christian fellowship. And so it's really serving a need to our homebound attenders. And then as well as corporate prayer, our leadership team at iCampus is so vibrant. God is answering these prayers in amazing ways. And so to be able to gather and pour ourselves into our leadership team each week through this corporate prayer time has really connected our leadership team so that when they come in on the weekends, their eyes are wide open looking for God because we have just prayed in very specific ways, and we're doing that each week. And so these are the different ways that we're seeing our life groups work. How do we do it? And I'm going to give you an example of our Bible study because our Bible study has probably had the most success. It is a group that started actually in my home, and then it was going on for a couple of years. Jeremy Henderson said, why don't we stream that through iCampus? And the next thing you know, we have recordings of that going out to probably, 100, our current is over 160 people or so. So we have an average about 50 people that attend live each week, and then I'll show you how this works. So what we start out doing is we'll run an ad and let people know it's available. Then we use Aweber. That is an application that we interact with on a weekly basis. We will send out an invite to all of our subscribers, which now I think we have over 1,500 is probably what we send out invites to. So we're usually working within our warm market. These are our live sessions. We do use Zoom conferencing. Are you all familiar with Zoom? Okay, Zoom is what we use and many do use. It is considered the #1 video conferencing and web conferencing service that is on the market. And so you can see the picture here. This is actually a picture of one of our groups where the viewers are joining us. They all appear. We call them the little Brady Bunch boxes. They can use their camera, or they can choose to turn their camera off. They can choose to join us with their audio, or they can leave themselves muted. Audio is probably one of our biggest challenges, working with this number of people online as well as a group that is present in the room. And so that's something that we're experimenting right now. Again, what we have found, our online group becomes more vibrant when they have a group present in the room to interact with. So right now I'm leading 4 different groups weekly, and we have a group that is present in the room that is also interacting with the online groups. So this is kind of just a combination. And the biggest challenge, again, is the audio, and I'd love to hear how Jay handles that. I'm not sure that they work with as larger groups. I think they do more smaller groups, but I'd like to hear how they handle the audio. And then if you're interested, we have an audio engineer that's currently been working to use our Zoom app on the phone, people's iPhones in the room as a personal mic. So I'll just throw that out there and you can remember that. For communication, it's really important when you're building these groups to stay in constant communication with them. We do that using, first, YouTube. We record all of our sessions and we upload those sessions to YouTube. And then we use our Facebook page. We have formed a private Facebook page for all of our members for each different study. Majesty of Messiah, study of the book of Hebrews is what we're doing right now. We have about 160 members in this group. We communicate to them through the online, through the private Facebook page, and then also through a Weber broadcast, where we are sending out each week a copy of the recording from the live session, as well as a list of study questions that they can do before the next week. And so each week, if they miss the live session or that doesn't work into their schedule, they're able to watch the Bible study in their own time. And so we do have people that are doing, that's the way they participate. So the equipment is a big part of this. I'll just quickly show you what we're using. The Logitech webcam is one that is not working right now, but typically gives us, we're able to pan the room for the online viewers. They want to be able, I would love for Jay to be able to see all of you here, and we could do that with the Logitech camera in our regular setting. We also use the Yeti mic. We tested a lot of different audio systems with an engineer. He's an audio engineer who has won Dove Awards. And so this is kind of what we have determined. And if anybody else has any solutions to offer, I would love to hear it. That's what we're currently using. Also, the computer that we use to connect all of the cables. That sounds like a really simple thing, but our IT department had to recommend this computer that has enough ports because we have now moved to using dual screens. And so with the dual screens, and that was one of the suggestions that we had when we were trying out small groups, they said we want all of the online attenders on one screen and then the PowerPoint on the other screen. And so now we use dual monitors, and that is an option. You need to check it in the Zoom application. But we have found that it is worth it. We're doing it in our home group as well as our groups that are on campus. But when you add in any extra like the dual screens, you have to have additional ports. And so there's a computer that is working for us, and you probably can check that out. If you have any questions, I can give you more details on what our IT department has recommended. I'm going to turn it over to Jay because I know that you're very curious to hear how Saddleback is working it in their small groups. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Lake Pointe Church, Rockwall, Texas. It's about an hour from here. My name is Jessica Taylor, and you can reach me at jessicat@lakepointe.org. So I'm going to turn it now over to Jay, and I'm going to, let's see if I.
Great.
Let me see. I
think you have to stop sharing. Did you already stop sharing?
Yeah. All right. So.
Some good tips there.
All right. So, you know what? Usually I stop share before you share, and now
Okay, hold up. Let's do this.
It's not giving me the option of stopping to share.
Okay, I just stopped. Let's do this again.
Let's see here. See, I'm seeing yours on my screen, but I'm not seeing it up there, and I have share screen. Let's see.
Is it a dual monitor thing? Like, do you have to drag it somewhere else? It's weird.
Okay, that is weird. I don't have it. Let's see if I can just close it up here. And,
well, as that's going, I'll kind of just start.
Okay, actually, we're close. Here we go. Now, we've got it. Go ahead. And
okay, good. Okay, you see that?
Yep, we're good.
Perfect. Okay, well, perfect. So I'll share our process. So I'm the online pastor at Saddleback Church, and been doing online ministry there for many years now. So there's definitely been a lot of different, I would say, evolutions on how we've done it. And something that's really big in our church is we have this saying on the small groups team, and I've been part of the small groups team. So one of the reasons why I would say there's many reasons why small groups is really important, specifically online groups, but small groups overall is really important for us with our online ministries, because I interned on that team. I was a small groups pastor for a long time. And so it's kind of like how I got molded, and it's kind of how I was resourced initially. But we have this saying that we don't want anybody to do life alone. And with online ministry, there are tons of people that are watching online, that are engaging with you, and they are alone. And it's the same thing is happening at our local churches. So many people, I always say, like, so many people go so much of their life without hearing that somebody loves them. And obviously we want to communicate a gospel message that God loves them, but not only God loves them, but also God has people to surround you with. And obviously we believe that's what God calls the bride of Christ, that's the church. And so how do we make people known, and how do we make sure nobody is doing life alone? And there's so many things that makes that hard to do. But for us, one of our primary ways we do that is small groups. And so a little snapshot of us, we've been doing online ministry for a while. There's some people in the room. Brian sent me a photo, and I was getting texts from some friends too, other friends. There's some people in here that have been doing online ministry way longer than Saddleback. And so there's so much wisdom in this room and at this conference. I'm actually really bummed that I'm not there. We're actually doing a big small group. We have one big campaign a year as a church, and it's happening right now. So it's literally it's like this 6-week window. I can't go anywhere. And because we're so busy, and we're in that season, and that working at a church too. But we started early on. We kind of had very ugly websites, and they got a little less ugly as the years went on, less ugly, and a little better. And now obviously, we just actually went through a redesign of our platform. And now people are not, you guys know this, people aren't just watching on your website, but they're watching on Roku, Amazon Fire, YouTube, listening on podcasts, Facebook Live. In 5 minutes will be 1,000 other things. And so, but one of the primary things that we've experienced with our online campus is we have this funny thing where it's a 30-minute number, which is really hard to influence. Can you hear me okay? I got a little unstable. Is that okay? You guys?
Yep, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, so I say this because it's important to understand our strategy. So I know some people count attendance by how many people, how many views, how many users. Some might count the number on the church online platform inside the dashboard. For us, they count a 30-minute number. So they actually built this custom script that after 30 minutes, you get counted as one, which meant it was very problematic for us to grow that number. You can't really buy an ad and hope they stay around for 30 minutes. That's really hard to do. And the cost per by just doesn't even make sense. And so what we started to do is we started to move towards a more core strategy of small groups. And a lot of our growth that happened on our weekend really came in long because of our group growth. And so back when we started groups in 2012, we started doing online groups. Is before I was doing online groups, somebody else on our team kind of initiated it, 2 individuals. And it was like on a website, we were using TalkBox at the time. It was all sorts of janky and hackery. It like worked. And we had a lot of groups, but it was a mess. There's all sorts of technical things. It's not like now with Zoom and, Skype. I know Skype is sometimes a bad word when you're thinking about online video. And so now we have 1,823 groups, part of our community. And something just so you understand our perspective, because I know we're talking about online groups, and this is what I'm going to like give some actually how we do that, is most of our groups in our community are actually home groups. And we have an intentional strategy, which I'll share, is that ultimately I want people to have the same experience, ideally, if possible, to have a face-to-face encounter. That's not always true, as people know with online ministry. And for us, we say people can't experience face-to-face community because either a season of life, sickness, or security. Those are kind of the big 3 that really lead to people have online groups is the only option. And so, which is okay. I love that. We're willing to do that. But we have this strategy where we remove people. But it gets real confusing because when I say how many groups I have, even our local campus pastors, they're like, you have a lot of groups. And I'm like, yeah, but we have home groups. And they're like, oh, they're not all online. And I said, no, it is confusing when you say online campus groups. It gets all messy and language is limiting. And then we have groups all around the world, like many of the people in this room, a lot of learnings. There's a lot of stuff we do really good, and there's some stuff that we definitely struggle with that I'll share more about. And so what I want to share, spend the time on, is actually our process. And so what we try to do is that we actually, with our online service, we're starting a conversation with them, and that's our outreach. That's the thing that's, we're reaching people, and people invite people to, and we'll run ads to that in all sorts of ways. And the idea from that, they get encouraged to take a next step. And the next step for us is getting them into a group. An online group is usually the best expression because time zones are not an issue, because we have groups happening at all different times of the day. So really, online groups become like I call it a safety net. There's no excuses, unless if you just don't want to do it. But you can't, a local group here at Saddleback, you might, I can't be there 7 o'clock in this city. Where I'm like, you don't need to drive anywhere. Traffic is an issue, whatever. You just need to be here. So a lot of people join an online group. And what happens for us while they're in an online group, they learn a lot about the culture and the DNA of what a group is about. It's not always the fullest expression, but it is an expression, and it offers community to them. And I know anybody in here who does online ministry, you could argue about, how much you can do online, but you can't argue what can happen online and what God has done through online ministry, specifically with online groups. And so then we move them down this process of actually starting a group in their home. And at any point, we offer them kind of exit ramps. Maybe we have a lot of groups that engage with us online for a season, then they realize, hey, there's a great church in my area. I'm going to start going there. And we're like, that's great. And a lot of times what our online groups are, we're kind of like, I would say like an incubator for discipleship. We grow them up to a point where they see the value of attending something locally, or they get a beyond their kind of, I would say like their finger on the nose of like, oh, that church isn't good enough. Now they might be mature enough to realize, hey, maybe that church isn't good enough, or maybe God's called them to grow it or take it to the next level. And so our paradigm of doing groups is really important in our context, because obviously you were hearing from Jessica the different paradigm. I don't think anybody doing online ministry should really go around your local church paradigm, because you're probably just going to drive yourself crazy. And so if you wanted to actually dive into the details of how we do groups, I don't get a credit for this. So he's my boss, but I don't get any money for this. But Small Groups with Purpose, it's a great book. My boss wrote it, and it kind of shares more of the ins and outs of how we do groups. And I think that's really important, because why that's important is because I'm not, a lot of people ask me, why do I have so many groups in my context? And I say, I have so many groups because my pastor talks about it constantly. It's that easy. And all my job is to like, I get to like maybe increase the percentages by closing it, like, making it easier by 5% on each side. But ultimately my pastor drives all the activity, and my job is just to retain them and make it easiest enough so I don't lose people when they click on that page. And so I'm not really the marketer of groups. My pastor is, and we talk about it constantly. So if you want to do online groups and you're like, I can't get anybody to do groups, and you have no groups at your local church, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to reinvent how you do it, because that's not really going to be possible, because the people are watching a sermon, they're being discipled by a teacher or a team of teachers, and they're doing whatever their teachers say. So if they're not talking about groups, it's going to be really hard for you to do it online. Maybe you can do something else in the context of groups, but don't expect scale. And so usually the percentage of groups you have locally of your congregation is the same thing you probably can achieve online. And for us, we have more people in groups on the weekend that attend our weekend service that go to our church in community. And so for us, it's really easy because we constantly are talking about it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So the snapshot of how we do groups is we're looking for a facilitator, not a leader. We use the word host very purposely. We're not looking for a Bible teacher. You don't have to have your MDiv and know all that stuff, because we use the video teaching as the teacher. And we say we want a facilitator because we believe the teacher is somebody who's dispensing information to everybody and who's the expert. A facilitator is, hey, we're in this transformation process together. It's a circle. So that lowers the bar. And we say, you don't need to be an expert. You play this video online, or we're going to give you a DVD or whatever, and you talk about it. And you're going through this together with your friends, and you're facilitating a conversation. And that helps lower the bar on people who can sign up. Balance of the purposes is really key for our church. And so we want groups, online groups and online groups, to balance certain purposes, and we want them to express them over a 6-month period. So that means you might have a group that we don't want groups just to do prayer requests every week. We also want them to study the Word of God. We also want them every 6 months to go out and do a ministry project. And so we use a 6-month window to kind of make sure, hey, how are you balancing these purposes? You don't got to do them every week. That would make your group a little schizophrenic, but you got to balance it. And so we do that we have some health assessments that guide that. And then we rely heavily online on automated with personal check-ins. And I'll explain more what that means. But there's a big thing about, we can get a lot of things to a lot of people very quickly. Once people sign up, if I could get them to log into our video system, which is mysaddleback.com, or for some of you might use Right Now Media or whatever, if I could get them to log in and see the material as quick as possible, I have a higher likelihood of them sticking around. So from them watching the service and feeling led by God, the leader group, if I could get them whatever they need, and I could plant that in and get them just 5% trained, I know that I have a higher likelihood of actually keeping them around. So I do a lot of automation, but we still do personal check-in, and we it's a both and, it's not an either or for us. And so for us, the way we do online groups is, number one, we provide ways for groups to access material digitally. It's common sense. We're not in the business of shipping or anything. And so we have our own built-in online learning platform that's for learning and also for our groups. It's called mysaddleback.com. If you wanted to peek around in it, you can email me and I could give you more details on that. It's an okay system. It definitely has its issues with whenever you build your own thing. Right Now Media, or there's so many things out there. I always tell people, if you wanted to try out groups, one of the easiest ways to do it would be create an email list, put it on MailChimp or whatever, and then for every host, and then just send them 3 discussion questions based off the weekend message. Because then you're not having to create video curriculum. You're just saying, hey, every week the whole small group watches the weekend message, and Sunday night I'm going to send you 3 discussion questions based off that. And you can have an online group that way. And that's one way to kind of test it before having to create all this curriculum and this online learning platform. We do something called Talk It Over. If you go to, I know a couple of the churches do this too. If you go to saddleback.com/talkitover, you can see an example. We create small group material every week based off our weekend messages. But that's a really inexpensive way to do online groups right now, because all you need to do is email them the questions every week. We promote platforms. We really don't get into the business of saying this is the best platform. We typically recommend Zoom.us, and I have a tutorial video that I did that kind of shows online groups how to do that. We're starting a lot of groups right now the last 2 weeks, and so I've sent that email many times. Here's how to use Zoom. But we allow groups to meet however they want. At the end of the day, I want my online groups to get together every week, watch some material, talk about it, and then pray. And then we have some resources to guide that along. And so I say you can do a text-based, you can do an audio-based, you can do a video-based. I have experienced this, and Jessica was just talking about this, that bandwidth is a real issue, especially when you get into certain places in the country. And so we purposely have said you can start all sorts of ways, and there's all sorts of ways that God uses this. Again, you could just meet regularly. I really don't care how you meet. I just want you to meet regularly and be talking about things. But on the back end, and this is like, there's a friend of mine that Pastor Kevin, who's on my team now with the online campus, he learned English as a second language, and his first language is Korean. And when he was learning English, he told me this that I think is really important, just reminding me of this, that when he was learning English, his English teacher told him that whenever you see a sentence and the word but is there, whatever was said before doesn't matter. The only thing after but that's most important is following. And that's how you translate it. And it was really interesting point on English. Obviously, scripture, there's a lot of implications. But here, so we don't really care how you meet, but the strategy is really important to us. Where we encourage all text-based groups to become audio-based. We encourage audio-based to become video, and video-based to become face-to-face long-term. And so that might not look like for everybody in the group will still be part of it, because online groups have people from all around. But maybe for example, what we'll do, I'll send an email during this campaign to say, hey, you've been part of an online group the last 6 months. I know you've learned a lot of things God's been teaching you. What if you host a group physically in your area for just this campaign? And we know that God can use a lot of these online groups as educational opportunities to show them that it is possible for them to host a group in their area. And then the last thing I want to say is this, I would say this action. We've all done this where you're online, you see something, and Amazon or whoever has made it super easy for you to buy something. It's like, wow, what? Like now I could on my phone, I just bought something a couple days ago and I just used my fingerprint login and I was able to use that for authorization. It's getting easier and easier because there's less resistance. And I think that's really important when you're talking about online groups. I think outside of all the other reasons why we have groups, so many groups online, I think one of the main things is I'm not the bottleneck. And my friends know I say this to everybody when I'm talking about online ministry. But for us, I know when somebody's watching the service and they're most likely to start a group or join an online group, I want to get them what they need as quick as possible. And sometimes as pastors and as ministers, we have this priority that, hey, I got to do a personal follow-up in order for it to be important. Well, I would tell you that that's great. The only unfortunate nature of that is that your ministry is limited by you. And that's where I go, you got to figure out that, because that means maybe you're only going to be able to manage 80 people. But let's think beyond that. And for me, what I have found in my sweet spot, along with a very large volunteer team, is giving them everything they need. So we use Wufoo. If somebody signs up and interested in a group, I give them, here's how you log in. Here's how you do this. And I give them everything so they can go now. And then we add them to a MailChimp workflow where I have 6 emails that goes to all new hosts over a course of 5 to 6 months. And I ask them the basic questions, and they're all discussion based, where I'm trying to get them to engage in me. And then I use ClickFunnels for some training, where I have a leadership course, an hour-long leadership course, that after they watch an hour, 45 minutes in, a pop-up shows up, and it says, once you finish this course, I'll mail you a certificate, and I'll mail you a book on small groups. And then we personally check in. So we use automation with personal check-in. And the personal check-in now is I don't have to spend a lot of time on all these details. I can just say, hey, did that make sense? Did that make sense? And we can dive more deeper. And so I really want to just say that, like, don't be the bottleneck. Think about how you can automate things, and don't be scared of that word. Think about it for a scalability. You can reach more people in a lot of different ways. So that's the snapshot of how we do online groups in our context.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. All right. So we're open to questions. So if anybody has any questions, we'll finish our time out.
No.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. The potential is amazing. Well, the technology, I believe God has provided that. And it's interesting to see in your culture, Jay, how you use it. And I think that's what is particular to each online situation.
How will the dialogue go? This is for both of you guys. Just for pitching it to a small group pastor, that we don't have a lot of online small groups, and obviously that's his baby. Being able to, it's the Lord's baby, but he's overseeing it. But being able to just really cast vision without stepping on toes and without, I guess, adding what seems like something that they're I'm not techy, and that's it's a tech team's job, but really letting them know that what you said, Jay, like you're able to reach more people, and that's where I'm just trying to figure out, okay, how can I dialogue that, how can I start that conversation?
For us, it has been a new movement. I think, Jay, your pastor is the one who promotes your small groups. And for us, it's rather new in our culture. And so the different ways when we cast vision for this was to see how it could benefit our existing small groups. We have 8,000 people meeting in small groups each weekend. And right now, we're just trying to develop a prototype that can be duplicated in each one of the life groups to show them that even when people are on vacation, that they can attend life group. That was one of the ways that we could at least open up his vision to consider the value of online groups, at least for those that might be resistant. Not that our pastor is, but they're having to get used to a new way of doing life group.
Yeah, and I would just add that I definitely think beta is a really important thing, trying out in small bites. Sometimes people want to do everything at once. Specifically, I say online ministry is very much like planting a church. You got to do it in seasons. On your first day of planting a church, you're not going to do service. You're not going to do a membership class. You're not going to do necessary baptisms and like 8 worship services and a ministry project all at once. And life groups, to do them right, or small groups in our context, it's a seasonal thing. Get your weekend service under control. And then the other thing is, and this is kind of more a philosophical thing for a church to handle, I think a lot of people go, they go, why don't I have more people in groups? First off, it's obviously, is your church a big proponent of groups? The second thing is, are you adding a lot of value to your online community? And so a lot of people are streaming services, but there's no follow-up. You're not really giving, there's no pastoral presence there. And why would somebody move along into a process in a group if you're not really caring for that community? So sometimes what we want with online community are, I would say, senior pastors or people that are executive pastors, sorry if you're in the room, they want it before it all happens. And so, people start tithing not because of, you just put up a building. People start tithing because there's a vision there and there's caring for them. People get into a group and join your church because somebody there caring for the vision and community. People will start getting into community, join a little group, get all this vision, and someone's caring for you there. And so I think small and getting it and kind of modeling it and figuring out how to scale it is probably the first step to kind of tell them, and not say, let's just launch it. Let's say, hey, can we just do it in this small beta and let's learn from it? And we'll talk about the pros and cons. That's how we did it. We launched it just for people far from Saddleback with a couple people, and then we saw small success. And so obviously that was like, it's like 6 years ago. So we've grown from there, but initially we didn't start that way. We had small bites.
And I think that's a good point, is to build on what is already existing, not to try to bring it in as a new ministry, but to build and support the ministries that are already there. And then to really focus on the benefits, because we have a lot of homebound members who are broken from fellowship while they're homebound. Maybe they're going through cancer treatments. And so to show the benefit to those who are homebound, to those who are traveling, to our snowbirds. And so it actually meets a lot of existing needs that would encourage the pastor to take a closer look. But we've seen in this past year so much growth, and actually people coming to Lake Pointe. We're not trying to steal members away from other churches, but if you provide a very vibrant experience, then they actually sometimes come and become a part of your physical church. So I think the results that's very key. And the Lord, if he's behind it, will make sure that happens. Yeah.
It'd be great if everybody just leaves the room and lets me stay on camera for a long time.
Well, you know, I wish
That would be
Jay can't see everyone, but we do have quite. How many do you think we have here? Well, we can at least tell him probably 25 people. So yeah.
sweet. Hi.
In case you think it's just you and I wish I could turn my camera.
Jessica, you said you had one person in the room that's kind of managing the online people while everyone else is doing the normal group stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are they kind of like somebody online has a question thing, or
Yes.
how does that work?
Okay, we do have in our Bible study we have a teacher, but we also have a facilitator. We call them a small group facilitator. And what they do is they are chatting for our online attenders. They're communicating with them through chat. So they're interacting while the teaching's going on, you know, just as we do at our worship service. They're chatting, and we have someone in the room that is chatting with them, interacting with them. And also that closes that group. Our groups are a little bit different. We do a teaching time, and then they have about a 15 to 20 minute time of open discussion. And we have a small group facilitator for each group that does that.
Okay, so yours is pretty structured on how the group works anyway. Where it sounds like Jay's is more free flow. Just do what you want to do. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Typically, I would just say for us, it's you watch. So some groups watch the content prior to meeting, so they're.
Sorry for the bandwidth. What I have heard is that what you guys do, Jay, is you discuss whatever the sermon was. That is what your small groups, the small group discussion focuses maybe on what the sermon was. Is that my understanding or not?
So what we have on-demand curriculum, and there's all sorts of options. So there's video teaching.
Okay.
So, and one of those is that. So, and then typically twice a year, there's curriculum that our whole church goes through together.
Okay.
So there's like 12 weeks that, hey, everybody's going through this.
Right. For us, what we do is our on-campus life groups have a curriculum, and so we're offering that curriculum online. So whatever they're doing on the physical campus, whatever curriculum they're following, we're offering that to our online viewers. We're pretty much mimicking whatever is happening in our physical campus is happening in our online small groups.
So the church is kind of fronting the camera and the microphone and all that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And we do, what we're probably going to, or where our groups will grow, is our existing groups, life groups that meet on campus on the weekends. We'll be able to take and set up each room to be able to offer that to online viewers. Right now we're nurturing the first online groups, and they're like a test case. So what Jay's doing is much further along than what we're doing, but our groups are vibrant. And that was the most surprising thing to me, as I had ministered for 18 years with small groups and in large groups, present with them. And I wanted to see, does that translate online? Does the Lord minister in the same way online as when we're in the same room? And I was so thrilled and excited about the potential when I saw how the Lord ministers online in the same way as if we're all in the same room. To me, it makes absolutely no difference. I've done both, and I'm probably more excited now about the potential online.
So when we've done in the past, I've done more of Jay's model, which is, it worked. The technology is really the frustrating part of it when people can't get cameras to work and all that stuff. So same thing. They almost always default back to a telephone eventually.
Yeah.
But yours is interesting. I'm wondering, has it affected the people that are there in person to know that people online are watching them and kind of privy to what you might not feel safe sharing?
That is a very good question. And there are some life groups that were resistant to opening up their physical life groups online because they felt like they were being exposed to whoever, being watched. Right. Which we know they have to have a link to join that group. So it's really by invitation only. And my point is, would you close the door if someone were walking into the door? If a visitor was coming to visit your life group, would you close the door? And the answer is, if you would, there's a problem.
Right.
So, yeah. But that has been raised by others.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I would just add to the online group this conversation. I think one way to help guide it is what Lake Pointe's doing would be kind of centralize online groups, and what we're doing is decentralize online groups, and both paradigms work very well. It just, it depends your paradigm, and we've done both. Like right now during our church, we do some centralized groups on site. We move them off after a season, but yeah.
Jay, what is the average size of one of your online groups?
About 8 people.
Okay.
Would be the average size. Yeah. But, we have some groups that would be 4 or 3. And then I have a couple online groups that are very large, up to 30. But, obviously some of those individuals aren't attending every week. And so, but our ideal, we would say a small group, trying to emphasize on small, would be between 8 to 12. But yeah, because we believe after 12, people stop being heard. And known. And so you it's like, I came to Christ at a church of 500, and my student ministry was like 80 people, and, you couldn't know everybody. And it was just, you could know everybody's name and recognize faces, but there becomes a real knowability, issue, unless you have a very well-trained leader. And so.
Our average size life group is about 24 at Lake Pointe. So. Anybody else? So are most of you, you're thinking about launching small groups online? Is that my understanding? Yeah. Don't let what happened with the equipment today discourage you. Let that be an encouragement that if this happens to you when you're launching your program, that's normal. We all go through it. But really in our settings, once we have the system set up and we're not managing the plugs the way that we are right here, it's really effortless. And when I go into the room, it's turn on the monitors, press the buttons, and we're there. We're on. We don't have a lot of, as long as you have a strong internet connection, we're able to host we've had our largest group, it's been under 100, but it's been close. And so we're able to manage that size of a group without people falling off or complaining. So.
Wow.
Question. It may sound very trivial. What about, is it tend to be younger people, tend to be more interested in doing online groups versus people who are older?
That's, what? We have got quite a lot of diversity within our groups, a lot of different ages, because I've had people at college who have attended, and they're in a library and have a group standing behind them. So I couldn't tell you right now what the majority is. If you were to go back and look at that photo, you would see people of all ages, male and female.
Yeah, we would be a little bit probably early 30s, mid 30s would probably be our prime target, but that's kind of our target of our overall community. But yeah, the same thing. I have people that are in early 20s. I have an online host that's in their 90s, so it ranges. Yeah. But on average, 30s.
Ours was on the upper end, actually, because younger people tend to have a network, like they're in college or they're around other people their age where they naturally connect better. So the older ones were the ones that were like, yeah, I'm homebound or whatever the situation. I can't come to church or a small group in person, so I'm going to do it remotely. So it's kind of surprising when you start doing it, like, oh, I didn't expect this kind of an age range or this kind of, it's not thing.
It may seem weird, but I actually do it in a small group where I do a hybrid, very similar to what you do. And I do it at 7 a.m. in the morning on Saturday mornings. And I usually have anywhere from 12 to 15 guys show up in the coffee shop in the middle of Phillips, and then my laptop.
Oh, yeah.
My laptop's usually connected to a Zoom meeting, and we'll have at least 5 to 8 guys.
That's great.
On it in the mornings. But like I said, so it doesn't even matter of time and days. But I agree with you. And a lot of those are guys on Saturday mornings, their wives are either out working or things like that, so they're having to stay home with their kids.
Yeah, makes
So a lot of people will, are in their 30s and 40s.
Yep.
Makes sense.
So that's why I'm saying I definitely corroborate that.
Yeah.
That's really neat, though. That's cool.
We really do enjoy the hybrid. I've done where it's all online, and that's probably the largest group I've had where it gets to close to 100 is everybody's online. But there's something about having that group present, and I like the idea. They begin to connect the online. They're connecting with more than just the leader. They're connecting.
We have 2 campuses that are about 30 miles apart, and we've noticed that we have 3 guys that will drive that 30 miles. They'll get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be at our 7 o'clock group now because they want to be in the room with us that are all in the room. But they started off as people who were actually going online.
So give them a taste of it.
Yeah. But I will say that James in Nairobi is as much a part of our life group. We do life with James in Nairobi as if he were living or if he was in the room. There is the connection. God has done that there's no explanation for it. We're not waiting for them to come to the room to connect.
No, we don't either.
Yeah, we are connecting significantly with people in other countries. It's been amazing to see the restrictions removed.
Yeah, I was just saying coming from that standpoint, I actually lived in Kenya. I lived in Kitale, Kenya, which is about 30 miles outside of Nairobi. And that was one of my biggest ways of keeping connected with people when I was in Kenya. A lot of times that was before Zoom really was really prevalent because it was mid-2000s. So we were typically using Skype back then at that point. But it was one of the ways to keep engaged with people back home.
Yeah, we've seen great success with our missionaries and staying connected that way.
Absolutely.
Are you the ones that you have that are so far away in other countries that are joining your small groups? Are you seeing that? Are they? Is their on-ramp your online campus first? Is that how they're getting involved?
Yes, it's either the online campus or it is our Facebook ads.
Okay.
Because through iCampus, we're able to develop quite a large warm market. And so through our Facebook ad campaign, I think we're reaching people in those areas.
Okay. Jay, is there a tool that you're using throughout the week to, like, you talked about using Facebook groups throughout the week, which is something we typically do. Is there a tool that you're using? Is that what you're going with as well?
Yeah, we primarily use a Facebook group for like a lot of our, I would say, patio experience for like local vernacular. It's kind of our people can interact and talk to each other from peer to peer and not be connected by us. But I would say for a lot of the communication directly to host or groups, we still rely heavily off email.
Sure.
So you sign up for something, and like, for example, right now, like we just uploaded a PDF of our new 40 Days of Prayer campaign that we're doing. So Pastor Kevin emailed all the hosts, hey, by the way, that's up. So we use a Facebook group to facilitate that. But if we really want to get information out, it's either on our intros or an ad space on our Church Online kind of page or streaming page. And then email is probably, email still is a beast. It's, you can't really mess with email regardless of what your opinion is. It's still, there's something about people still look at their email every morning. Yeah, so
I agree. That's where Aweber, do y'all use Aweber?
I haven't, no. So we have our own, we have a form like a lot of our larger, 100 or so, or we use MailChimp for that, but yeah.
Well, I think we're about out of time, so thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.